Robert Plank Show, episode 61. Supercharge your inner game. How to stop, avoid, destroy, and overcome the negative thinking patterns in your life and become happier without losing your edge. This is Robert Plank. Welcome back to the Robert Plank Show, where we talk about internet marketing. Now, a really important thing when it comes to internet marketing is the mindset self-help game, because well, our lives are a little different than the average person, and the biggest difference is that we need to motivate ourselves. We don't have anyone really pushing us forward, and usually in a day job, you can probably skate by your 40 or 50 years without actually self-actualizing, which means that you can survive without fixing any of your real inside problems. If you work a day job, if you mindlessly do a task for someone else and make someone else more money. But when it comes to motivating yourself, that doesn't always work. You're going to hit a wall every now and again when you have to switch between being creative and being productive. And what's really scary is that if you don't deliver, then you don't get paid when you are your own self-employed entrepreneur. So if I sound a little different today, it's because I'm a little scared, and it's because at the time we're recording this, I'm going to go into surgery early tomorrow morning. I posted a blog post a few days ago. If you're following this podcast in real time, maybe you're following this podcast years later, but I was at a wedding doing some dancing. There was a concrete floor with some liquid spilled on it, slipped on it, and I messed up my ankle pretty bad. I broke it in two places and tore the ligaments, and tomorrow, they are going to cut me open, move the bones around, do some kind of stuff with a plate and a big screw and another big screw, and one of the screws comes out in about 9 weeks, but it's a kind of scary place to be. And I'm sure it'll be fine and all that stuff, but I'm still kind of, a little shaken up, a little stressed out about it. And so I'm just being a little real with you, and I think that it's a good timing for us to talk about this negativity issue, right? Because we could talk about all kinds of different self-help subjects, how to be productive, how to be happy, how to always wake up and have a great morning routine and stuff like that. But every now and then, stuff just catches up to you, and you have to find the good in it and find the perspective in it, and also at the same time be honest with yourself without feeling sorry for yourself and without labeling stuff. So once again, I'm sure the surgery will be fine. I'm sure, maybe I'll even listen to this myself, years and years later. But I'm doing my best to kind of keep it together, to be honest, right now. So I think that out of all the stuff we're going to talk about today, I think that the most important thing is just to freaking be honest with yourself. And I mean that there are a lot of internet marketers who make a decent amount of money online, and they seem to have to 10 times or 20 times the income that they tell people they make, as an example. And it's really scary place to be, because eventually you start believing your own lie, and if you always tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. So if you find yourself, if you think everything is going great and suddenly something just boom ruins your day or ruins your week, or it's the smallest thing, well, maybe all this stress and you've been building up, and then suddenly one little thing sent you over the edge. So I have a couple quick questions for you, and one is, do you find yourself filtering out the positive things that happen to you, or if a bunch of good things happen and one little thing happens, do you find yourself minimizing all the good things and maximizing the big thing? Well, if so, you might be a negative person. I feel like I'm almost like you might be a redneck guy. Do you blame yourself for everything bad that happens, even if there are things out of your control? If so, you might have a negativity problem, which is great. You made it here, now you can fix it. Do you always expect the worst in any situation? Well, it's easy to get stuck in that pattern, and it's tough to get broken out of it. But once you break out of it, then things become a lot easy for you, and guess what? The people around you. You don't make everyone else around you as miserable as you. Do you only see things in terms of black and white? Like if 98% of things go great and 1 to 2 things go wrong, do you consider that a complete failure? Well, if any of those 4 things are problems for you, and once again, be honest, no one's going to judge you, then maybe you have a negativity problem. And I have a few strategies to share with you today, as I'm just kind of honestly trying to calm my nerves and putting things in perspective for me. And I mean, I hope that that putting things into words, I think, is going to help you, right? And this is called journaling. If you were, if you did this as a kid, but if you can direct the stress and the anxiety that you personally have back in your business, record a podcast, make a blog post, code some stuff up, make a product, then that'll pay for you in more ways than one, right? Because you can actually get past all those scary emotions and make some money in the process. So my next question for you, question number 5, is do you have a support system to get you out of the rut when you need to? A mastermind, someone to talk to, or tapes to listen to, or things like that. That's the first thing I would do. Is it's really tough to go it alone, and no matter how many times we try to tell ourselves this, no one really goes it alone, right? We all have some kind of support system. Maybe that's a wife or girlfriend or family member or something where you don't have to go into all the details about your joint venture prospects, your opt-in page, but just tell them in maybe simple emotional terms without getting into all the geeky details what's upsetting you. And so many times, at least for me, just explaining the problem itself gets me past it. Are you preventing the problem that's coming up before it even happens? And usually this is just getting out of your comfort zone. I mean, so many times, and let's just say that most of your problems are money based, right? Right now my problem is not money based, my problem is broken ankle based. But I mean, let's just say that you're getting stressed out a lot about money, right? And you say that my bank account's super low, or there's not a lot of money coming in, or maybe I'm out of a job, or I'm afraid I'm going to be homeless. And I mean, first of all, it might help just to play it out and just see like, okay, what's really bothering me? Okay, based on that, what's really bothering me? What could happen? What could happen? What could happen? Just to make a list. Just so you can have just a list of your the things you're fighting against, your enemies, so to speak. So homelessness could be one of your enemies, and then you might even look at it now and say, well, being homeless, that's kind of a ridiculous thing to look at because it's so far away. But just add that to the list and maybe categorize the fears that you have. Maybe if you have so at least that way, if you have 10 or 20 fears, you can categorize them into 2 or 3 categories and just figure out of those 3 categories, what's the simplest one to take care of. And maybe you're worried about all this money stuff, all this friendship stuff, all this relationship stuff. Maybe out of those 3, the relationship stuff is the easiest one to tackle. Let's get rid of that, and then you can get to the rest of the other things. But a lot of the problems that led you here are due to you not getting out of your comfort zone, or you not having real goals to build to. And I mean, it sounds kind of mean and sad, especially if you're having money problems or things like that. But if you, a lot of people they like to pump the brakes. They put a foot on the brake if things go great, right? They have a big successful launch. They make their $50,000 from internet marketing. They take a break for 6 months. But what if you push it even further? And I'm not saying get in a panic. I'm not saying be like the people who lived through the Great Depression. They hoard all this money. But if things are going great, it's easy to keep them going great and put in, just 10 or 20%. If you're going on a vacation, load up some email autoresponder messages, or join Fiverr or Uber or Airbnb to get some extra money coming in. But you might need to do some things to get out of your comfort zone. Contact people for joint ventures you wouldn't normally contact. You're in your everyday life, talk to people or apply for jobs or things like that you normally wouldn't do, and have real goals to build to. Because if you don't have goals, you're just going to maintain. You're just going to maintain your, $10,000 coming in per month and paying the bills. But what happens if you have one slow month that you can't pay the bills? Well, then you're really screwed. And I really feel almost kind of superstitious talking about this, because I'm so worried about if I talk about these possibilities so much that eventually that's what I'll focus on. That's what will become of me. But we want to identify them so that we can move on. And we want to get out of our comfort zone, have real goals to build to, and always do what you are afraid to do. All right, I think that's like Ralph Waldo Emerson or something. And so, you should do the things that you're afraid to do. If you're afraid of swimming or afraid of going on a roller coaster, I'm not saying you have to go on a roller coaster that does loopy-loops upside down, but push the envelope as much as you can and go on that trip or go on that date or things like that that you normally would be afraid to do. And then question number 7. are you aware of simple mindset tools? And it helps just to, just go on YouTube even, or go on YouTube and search for, self-help mindset. And there are lots of little things you can do. And I found, at least for me, as far as like anxiety and stress, that there's no one solution, and that there's probably about maybe 5 or 6 solutions, and at any given time it's just a matter of identifying which of the 6 things is going to help me right now, because at any given time 5 out of the 6 things won't work, but one of them will. So for example, exercise beats most stress. Going for a run, obviously I can't do that right now, but I might be able to do sit-ups or something, or there's a thing in self-help called a state. And so if you're in like a crappy state, motivated state, excited state, state of confidence, state of certainty, that is a collection of emotions and, feelings and things that get you thinking in a certain way and doing things in a certain way. And many times, if you're burned out, it might be, for example, that you've just been at the computer for too long, or you've been thinking about a problem for too long, or in the same miserable kind of state. So you might just need to change your state and go for a drive. And changing your state might also be a matter of removing the patterns or the anchors or the triggers, which means that you could reduce the negative words in your vocabulary. If you ask most people how they're doing today, they'll say good. They won't say great. They won't say awesome. They won't say super fantastic. They won't say fabulous. They'll just say the word good, because that's the pattern they're locked into. And then if you notice that the positive words you say are simple and one syllable, like good, and the negative words you use are words like flabbergasted or I'm outraged, that is another sign that you need to dumb down or eliminate the negative words and then use more colorful or outrageous positive words, and think about the ways that you're thinking. For example, if something's a disaster, well, maybe I could look at that as I got a broken ankle and that's a disaster. I'm sitting at the desk right now recording my podcast with my ankle propped up on a chair and a pillow. Well, you could look at that as a disaster, or you could look at it as a challenge or an adventure or things like that. So think about that. Think about the negative words that you keep using over and over. And if you break that cycle and even make the negativity silly and the positive parts fun, you'll actually kind of break your patterns and get somewhere for a change. So let's talk about 7 quick exercises so that you can drill down on what part of your life to focus on. I just have 7 quick questions. I'll read through them real fast so that we don't have to be here all day on this podcast. Question 1. What's good about this situation, or what could be good about it? For example, procrastination. If you're a big procrastinator, well, if you're close to a deadline, now you're motivated to finish that deadline. Question 2. What are 3 things you're grateful for today? And that might be, things like the house over your head, or the skills you've picked up in life, or your intelligence, or your family, or things like that. And I'm not saying, you know what kind of ticks me off? People say every day you should list 5 things that you're grateful for today. And I tried that, but after about a week I ran out. So we're going to keep it really simple and say, just for today, just take a piece of paper and write down 3 quick things you're grateful for today. Question number 3. What small step could you take today to fix your situation? For example, if your problem is money, or your problem is your career, and you wish you could go back to college, get a college brochure. Go and walk around the campus of the college and get a brochure, or go on the website and print it out, but take the smallest step to get on to fixing that situation. Maybe if your dream has always been to get a certain kind of car, well, get a catalog for that car, or even read the reviews for the different models and years for that car, and narrow down the exact one you want, the exact model, make, color, mileage, maybe even find the exact one you want in an exact lot, so that you have some little tiny bit of progress towards where you want to go. Question 4. Are you predictable? What usually sets you off, and what can you do to avoid it? So, for example, maybe in any situation you find yourself just expecting a bad result off the bat. And this is a totally normal coping mechanism for us human beings, right? You launch your product, launch your website, and if you do it already expecting the worst, well, then there's nowhere to go but up. Or so you think, right? And that way, if it fails, you won't be disappointed. Well, that might have worked for you for a while, but maybe that worked too well, and now you're always expecting the worst. So don't expect the best this time. Question number 5: do you journal and meditate? Or we can just, instead of saying meditate, we couldn't call it thinking, sitting in darkness or walking for 20 minutes without music, to turn your thoughts into words and find a solution. Plus, what's cool about this whole journaling thing is that you can identify those triggers that set you off. The triggers why you sometimes get excited, or sometimes get depressed, or sometimes get demotivated, or sometimes just have a bad day, and sometimes it might be a person. Well, then great. You've identified the problem. Now you can either fix your relationship with that person or remove your relationship with that person. So that leads us to question number 6, or I guess item number 6 is, how do you deal with that negative person in your life if you have one? And so first of all, it might mean that someone will snap at you, right? And you might find yourself being bullied. That might be this whole time you've been okay with slowly and slowly and slowly being bullied more and more and more, and that's what got you into this situation. And now you've got to fix it, maybe right away, maybe slowly. But what I found, at least, is that if someone's bullying you, or if someone's kind of, and I mean, bullying can just be emotional bullying, but if someone's bullying you, they might always snap at you, right? If you say something that they need to hear. And I'm not just saying that if you're nagging or something, but if there's something that they need to hear, or if there's a problem you have with them, and you tell them and they snap at you, or they blame you, or they turn the attack onto you and say that, well, you're just doing something to, get revenge on them, or you're doing this because they did that. I think the most important thing is to keep your cool, right? And I mean, I know it seems simple, but if there's something bothering you, tell them about the thing that's bothering you. And if they can't change it, then you have to not necessarily cut them out of your life, but maintain a distance, right? Don't hang out as much, or don't call them. Maybe wait for them to call you. And once again, not in a revenge kind of way, not in a tit for tat way, so that, well, now they back off, so you back off. But negativity is contagious, and if you let their weird, convoluted, bizarre thinking affect you, well, then you're going to then pull it back on them, and you both just drag yourself down worse and worse and worse. And then question number 7 is, can you identify your own negative thoughts, patterns, problem words, especially hero and victim thinking, right? And because if you think about it, well, in life you can either be the hero, the villain, or the victim, right? The victim is the person that the villain attacks, and maybe in some ways you might have thought in the past that you were the hero because you're putting up with this abuse or things like that. And so there's the hero, the villain, or the victim, and it's easiest to see yourself as the victim, a little less easy to see yourself as the hero, but still pretty possible, and it's the toughest to see yourself as a villain, because if you're the villain, then you might be the problem. And something I'm going to get into, we're going to get into in a couple of minutes, but there's a saying that I found myself, I think I invented it, but I found myself saying it, and it's that I'm not smart. What I mean by that is, in many situations, it helps to just take a step back and say, okay, the thing I'm doing right now, maybe it's not working. Once again, not in the feeling sorry for myself, but am I really doing the right thing? And not in a self-doubting kind of way, but maybe I need to change, right? And so maybe if I've been arrogant, and maybe if I've been pushy, and I've been aggressive this whole time about the way that things have to be done, about the way that webinars have to be done, or the way that I've been building my list. In a lot of ways, us being entrepreneurs, our gut has been super, super helpful. Your gut, your instinct is what led you here to this point in your business, and even to listening to this podcast. But be really careful about what are you right now. Are you the victim? Well, it's time to become the hero or the villain. And if you're the hero, maybe you're the villain in disguise. You just don't know about it. So think about that. There's the hero, there's the victim, and then there's the villain. So this negative mindset. Well, there are a few, I don't know, should we call them flavors of the negative mindset? Honestly, I wanted to make a big long blog post about this whole negativity thing, but then the longer I thought about it, I was just like, screw it. I can't think about it much longer. Let's just make a podcast and just get it all out. Let's just speak it out so I don't have to think about it. But I still think that there are a lot of tools in overcoming negativity, whether that's your own internal negativity or if that's negativity that you're dealing with another person. But there are 7 negative mindsets. And heck, maybe if you recognize one or two in your own, then those are the things to focus on just a little bit every day. Use some of these tools to overcome that particular negative mindset. We're going to talk about the echo chamber, the I told you so syndrome, the realistic fallacy, social policing, mind reader pitfall, overgeneralizing, and playing the tape. So echo chamber, and here's the only thing you ever need to hear about negativity and why it's bad. Negativity leads to a self-fulfilling prophecy. And if you try to say, oh, negativity is good because it helps you to avoid the things that are bad that are coming up, well, kinda, but you don't want to be a total hapless idiot with your head in the clouds, but still, you don't need that much negativity in your life because it will lead to a self-fulfilling prophecy, which means that if you think you can or you can't, you're right. If you think that your next launch is going to go badly, and that's all you're thinking the whole time, then of course you, without realizing, are going to sabotage it so that you don't mail as hard, don't market as hard, run out of time, give up, walk away, whatever, and then guess what? You'll be right. So you'll self-sabotage yourself before you even get started. And misery loves company, and negativity is fear-based. I mean, it's based on you're afraid that you're going to fail, so it's easier not to try. And then you get all twisted up in knots and get all this backwards thinking. And if there's another person involved, then you make each other negative, and you tell yourself that, well, I'm not the one making myself negative, it's him. Well, he's making you negative, and you're making him negative right back. And so, yes, it is your fault. You are contributing to each other's negativity. Number 2, the I told you so syndrome. So many people root for you to fail so that they can be right. And so this is kind of like almost like the self-sabotage, but directed outward. So it's really easy to make fun of someone else's attempts at making money. And I'm sure you've dealt with this, right? As a home-based entrepreneur, I'm sure you've had that brother-in-law type of figure saying, why don't you get a real job? Why are you goofing around on websites? Why are you goofing around with this AdSense stuff? Why don't you actually make a decent wage like the rest of us? Well, in any kind of business you're growing for yourself, there's going to be the growing pains, there's going to be the cracking the code phase. There is that difficult stuff, but it's easy for someone else just because they either hate themselves or they want to be you, or they're threatened by you. So those are the 3 reasons people will hate you, but it's one of those 3 reasons. It's easier for them, instead of them being as good as you, it's easy for them to tear you down and root for you to fail, because then when you do fail, then guess what? They were right all along. And the answer for you is that revenge is the best success. Number 3, the realistic fallacy. So and I've noticed this with me. This is probably my number 1 negative mindset. So maybe this is yours too. This is where I say, I'm not being negative, I'm just being realistic, right? And so we might say that, well, I'm not going to put all this extra money into advertising my business because I'm just being realistic. There's no way I'm ever going to make that money back. I'm not going to go to this conference and fly across the country and maybe spend $3,000 when it's all said and done, between the hotel, flight, parking, ticket to the event, food, and all that stuff. So I'm just being realistic. I'm not going to take a risk because it's just not going to work. There's no way it'll work. So the problem with being realistic, so to speak, is that it causes you to give up too soon. And this is kind of what the brother-in-law wishes you would do, right? Be realistic, play it safe, get that job, work 40 years, and what got you into being self-employed is, in fact, being unrealistic. So then the thing, too, is that since we're kind of on the same subject, I didn't want to make yet another mindset, being unrealistic is another form of self-sabotage, and here's how. Is that people sometimes set huge unattainable goals. And I mean, having a big goal is great, right? And I knew a guy once who he was working for himself for a while, and he joined like an actual startup, which was kind of cool. And he made a goal of making $1 million in a year. And I think it was some like skateboard company, but this guy, he actually made a realistic goal as a form of motivation. But what many people do is they'll set an unrealistic goal as a form of self-sabotage. And I noticed this with a couple of our coaching clients a few years ago. We would tell them, make a website. And they say, great, I'll make 50. And we say, wait a second, don't make 50 websites. That can be next week. For this week, just make a simple 3-page website. Guess what? The next week, there are still 0 websites. So it's It's an easy trap to fall into of setting unrealistic goals as a form of self-sabotage and say, I'm going to set up 50 websites even though I can't set up one. Or I want to join a dating site and meet the love of my life, but I'm only going to do it once I lose 50 pounds at the gym. So you set up these roadblocks, and the roadblock right in front of you, you'll never get past, so that the goal that you tell yourself that you're going to make, you never get to it. So the realistic fallacy causes you to give up too soon. So negative mindset number 4 is social policing. And this is basically where you try to set absolute rules in society, and maybe that might just mean, for example, if you always tell the truth, then it's so-called unfair if everyone else doesn't tell the truth, right? Or if you're honest about your income and someone else isn't, and you know that for a fact, then now you're feeling kind of like you're the victim again, right? Because why don't they play by your rules, and now you're limited by this thing, and you don't want to be a scumbag, you don't want to break the law like they are. So the answer to that is, don't try to apply so many rules to everything, and pick your battles. Okay, so if you see someone else doing better than you, well then you don't need to take it personally. There are people that are doing better than you. If you see someone who is achieving more in their life, in their business, at a younger age than you are now, or at a younger age than you were at that age, that's fine. I mean, you don't know what other things are going through, and there's no point in categorizing or comparing yourself to others. It's just a losing game. You are on a different path than that person. Negative mindset number 5, the mind reader pitfall. So this kind of comes from the fact that a lot of negative people somehow think that they have been granted the ability to read minds, okay? And that just means, like, if you find yourself telling someone else what they're thinking, or you're finding yourself telling someone else the reason why they're doing something, well, they might not be out to get you. So give people the benefit of the doubt, and you don't always understand what they're going through. And just because somebody, for example, might have been late meeting you for a meeting or something, or you might have agreed to meet up for lunch, and then they're 20 minutes late. Well, guess what? They just might be irresponsible. They just might not be late. It's not like everyone is out there to get you. Negative mindset number 6, the overgeneralizing mindset. So be really careful about the narrative in your life, and the meaning for things, and the reason why things, quote, always seem to happen to you. Most things that happen in life, I hate to tell you, are random or happenstance. And it's easy, because we watch all these movies and TV shows and romantic comedies, it's easy to think that you are in the middle of a 2-hour movie, and you're just in the middle bad part where the movie sucks, and it's going to get better in the end, but you can't always count on that, and it's not like the world is conspiring or fate is conspiring to give you a bad day. There are a million things happening every single day, and you're just along for the ride. So you don't have to put this narrative, once again, the victimization. You don't need to say that all these bad things happening to you are happening for a reason, unless the reason is so you can learn and get off your butt and not repeat their mistakes and have motivation to do better, right? So I would say the only rationalization for having any kind of fate in your life for bad things is so that you can get better. And then finally, negative mindset number 7, playing the tape mindset. So this is probably like the second biggest issue I have. And I mean, the issues never go away. We just find different ways to deal with them. And if we find that these issues are keeping us from making money, then we definitely have to solve them. If they're keeping us from making us happy or being fulfilled, we definitely have to solve them. So playing the tape mindset is where you think about what others might say. And that means that, I mean, for example, when I was a kid, my dad was real negative. And if I had anything good to say, he'd always find the one thing, the one thing to ruin my day or kill my mood or harsh my buzz or whatever. And I found myself at that young age, if I had something cool to say or something cool to do, I would find myself thinking about what my dad, that negative person, would have to say before I even did it. And it's a really bad place to be, where you're basically letting someone else live in your head rent free, and you're letting them control you when it's just your imagination of them. So don't always think about what others might say, and so that's the playing the tape mindset. If you're going to go off and go to that conference, and you hear your brother-in-law telling you, and this ties into the I told you so, but if you hear your brother-in-law telling you, even if you're not even talking, even if the real brother-in-law doesn't even know what's going on, and you hear him telling you about how it's not going to work and it's going to be a waste of time, that's terrible. That's probably the worst mindset out of all the ones that we're talking about, because you're letting someone else get in your head, and it's not even really them. So the playing the tape mindset, if you find yourself thinking about what others might say, well, you need to have a better person playing the tape in your head. If you're always having that negative person bringing you down in your imagination, then replace that person with a more positive, mentor kind of person. Even think about what Robert Plank might say, right? If someone in your life is being negative about that plugin you're going to create, or that book you're going to write, or that conference you're going to go to, what would Robert Plank say? Robert Plank would say, heck yeah, go to the conference and see what happens. And what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is that you have some fun, have a little mini vacation, and you're only out a couple of days. So as we're winding down this call, 7 helpful thoughts. First of all is, we already said earlier, I'm not smart. What I mean by that is, heck, I could code all kinds of cool stuff. I can do all kinds of marketing stuff. But common sense wise, I think that we all think we have more common sense than we actually have. And being smart and thinking I've seen everything usually costs me money. So when it comes to internet marketing, there's only a handful of things you actually need to know, right? There's some mindset stuff. There's things about traffic, things about making a product, things about building a list. But then we get to the point where we think like we've seen it all. And then there's no point, if we made a product before and it didn't work, there's no point in making product number 2 because making a product didn't work. Well, maybe the problem was you. Maybe the problem was the timing of the product, or you didn't get enough traffic. But usually if things fail, it's the smallest, tiniest thing that was either in there or shouldn't have been in there. And so you need to try again. You need to have a little bit of gullibility. You need to be kind of naive when it comes to your online business, because guess what? That first year that you were in business for yourself online, wasn't that a great year when anything was possible and the whole world was open to you? And in that first year, you probably made a heck of a lot of mistakes. Maybe you even made some money, but a lot of people forget about that first year. They forget about why they even got started in internet marketing in the first place, and they forget about the magic that was always available to them. Helpful thought number 2. Keep in mind that negative people are negative about everyone and everything, so don't take it personally. What else do we have to say there, right? It's not all about you. If someone's rude to you for no reason, they were probably rude to the person that they bought their coffee from this morning. They were probably rude to someone that they called for customer service on the phone. They are probably rude to the person at McDonald's drive-thru. It's not just you, so don't think that you are the cause for them yelling at you. Helpful thought number 3. It is what it is. Things happen, right? Sometimes we break our ankle. Stop worrying, because you're bigger than your problems, and you can choose to ignore those bad incoming thoughts. Helpful thought number 4. Control what you can control. You don't have to take all the responsibility for everything good or bad that happens. And to be honest, it's probably based off nothing, but this is how it feels to me. I feel as if 80% of my problems are internal, or the way I think about them, and 20% of my problems are external, or the things I do and the things that I react to. So most of your problem is just inside of you. It's just the way you feel about a certain situation. And guess what? If you are a little more optimistic, a little happier, a little more excited, a little more energized and motivated to making money and building your business, then you'll do it faster, and it'll lead into a feedback loop where you get excited about making more money. Imagine that. Helpful thought number 5, imagination can work for or against you. So transform the things that you don't want to focus on into tiny little microscopic, silly hallucinations, and transform the things in your imagination that you do want to focus on into big, powerful things. For example, I knew a guy once who I always got frustrated with him because he wouldn't get things accomplished. He would focus on things like printing out business cards, and so somehow I started imagining him, dropping his business cards on the floor and, juggling them and making a little house of cards with his business cards. And I felt better. I was able to let go my own frustration with this person who was just obsessed with business cards and nothing else in his actual online business. Helpful thought number 6, replace what you delete in life. So if you've been on this track for a long time, you've been negative, you've been hanging out with the same old negative people, and you say, okay, today I'm just going to make this drastic change and not talk to anyone negative, then you might not have anyone to talk to. So instead of doing something as drastic as that, how about you replace talking to the bad people with talking to new people, right? Maybe join some kind of group or club in the community, or join a different mastermind group. Or if you find that you used to have a bad habit in your life, like smoking or complaining, how about you devote that 30 or 60 minutes that you would have put towards smoking or complaining into podcasting or blogging or finding joint ventures or making a webinar or things like that, but you want to replace what you delete in life. And then finally, and I want to shout this one out to my good friend and business partner, Mr. Lance Tomashiro. He told me once that you can't compare your insides to someone else's outsides. So that's really powerful, right? And I mean, and this is kind of the it's got to be called something. It's like the Facebook projection or something. But I mean, you look on people's Facebook, especially couples, especially new couples, and their life just looks totally perfect and fine and it's paradise. But as soon as the cameras aren't taking pictures, they're probably I wouldn't say they're as miserable as you, but they have all the same ups and downs as you. I remember, once again, when I was in college, I was really pissed off because I knew a marketer who told me that he never needed to get a mortgage. He just had a bunch of money, wanted to buy a house, boom, bought it in cash. And here I was 20 years old thinking, man, I'm such a loser because, I mean, I got to get a mortgage. I can't even buy a house in cash outright. Well, it turns out that that person actually, for all those years, was lying. So my problem was comparing his outsides, which was this fake persona of being this huge millionaire, to his insides of he was probably renting his dang house. Not to say that I should be happy that he's a liar, or should be happy that he was doing poorly, but you just don't always know. You never have the complete picture. You never know what goes on behind closed doors, whether that's anybody, right? Whether that's your best friend, or maybe some other couple, or family members, or people that you do business with, or people that you look up to as your mentors, or anything like that. You just don't know. And at the end of the day, you don't want to worry more about someone else than you worry about yourself, because they don't worry about you. They don't put as much mental thought, or I guess aren't all thoughts mental, but they don't put as much thought into you as you do of them. So why do you have to obsess over people you hate and things you hate? I know it's easier said than done, but what's helped me for fixing up my inner game and getting rid of negativity is narrowing down the problem, narrowing down the triggers, and especially narrowing down one of those 7 negative mindsets. The echo chamber, the I told you so syndrome, the realistic fallacy, social policing, mind reader pitfall, overgeneralizing mindset, and that playing the tape mindset. So, it's Robert Plank, and I have a surgery tomorrow to get some plates and screws put into my foot. I just ran a webinar today about our Membership Cube 3 training course. We are launching our website remote service next week, so lots of cool things happening, and the good thing about this internet business is that you can do it anywhere, including from home. It doesn't take that many hours, so you can do a few hours, do a little bit, record a quick podcast, and go back to bed. But, you know, things happen in life. And I think that, at least for me being totally honest, is that if something's bothering me, I mean, the worry, stress, and fear of the upcoming event is almost always worse than the event itself. And the best tool for me has been talking to you personally. And it sounds almost like I'm going to die. I'm not going to die, but talking things out is like the best therapy, right? And I mean, so many therapists just listen to you anyway. So if you have something that's bugging you, something that needs to get fixed, or even if you just need to feel better about something you can't avoid, I can't avoid this surgery, then, you know, talk it out, and maybe talk it out a couple different times, couple different ways. Talk about it in a certain way with a family member or a close one. Talk about it in a business sense, and redirect that energy into making more money. So I'm Robert Plank, and that was Supercharge Your Inner Game. How to stop, avoid, destroy, and overcome the negative thinking patterns in your life and become happier without losing your edge. Have a great one. Don't be a stranger. I'm Robert Plank, and bye now.